Welcome back, I'm Captain Xavier, and I am not wearing a silly hat because the first part of this video is going to be very serious. I am, of course, going to be talking about the COVID-19 pandemic that is currently underway. A number of people reached out to me and asked me, how is this going to affect your travel? How is this going to affect the big events? A couple of people actually reached out to me and asked me to do a public service announcement about it for the hobby, and I didn't feel comfortable with that because I am not an expert in this field. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a virologist, I'm not an epidemiologist. I've made a hobby of studying the previous two great pandemics, the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918 and the Black Death of 1347, but that doesn't qualify me to make public service announcements about this. There are experts that have done so, and I recommend that you go and you read those. Go to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention's website, CDC.GOV, go to the World Health Organization's website, WHO.INT, and read the announcements that they have made. Read the recommendations that they are making. Don't get your information from Facebook or from YouTubers or from Instagram or even from the mainstream media. Go to the experts, go to the source, and get the actual facts and understand why this is dangerous, why this is important, why we are taking the fairly drastic measures that we are taking in order to prevent the disease from spreading any further. To put it in zombie outbreak terms, containment has already failed. We were unable to prevent the virus from getting into the general populace. We were able to do that with SARS in 2003. We were able to do that with swine flu in 2009 and keep those two epidemics instead of it going fully pandemic. We failed with this one. It wasn't taken seriously enough early on, and now it has gone pandemic, and now we are playing catch-up, and we are therefore taking more drastic measures than some people deem necessary. But go to those sources, read up on why it is necessary and what you need to do in order to help slow the spread down. The short version is, assume you have already been infected and behave in a way that you don't infect other people. Quarantine yourself if possible. If not possible, wash your hands, wear gloves. If you're going to sneeze or cough, sneeze into your elbow rather than your hands or just out into the open. We're trying to actively prevent the disease from spreading any further. We're trying to keep as few people from contracting it as possible so that those who are high risk don't end up dying. Everybody knows somebody who is at high risk. There are 2 members of the crew that are currently high risk. There's another member's mother who is extremely high risk. So we're trying to keep the high-risk people from getting it, but we're trying to prevent it from spreading in general. And so, yeah, we're canceling events. We're canceling travel. Yes, I will not be traveling to Europe. I will not be traveling to Pennsylvania. Unless things change drastically, End War will probably get canceled. West vs. Zombies will probably get canceled. Ragnar Oktoberfest may even get canceled if it takes that long to contain it. Hopefully it doesn't, but it's entirely possible that it will. So that's why I recommend the CDC and the World Health Organization, because they are up to date constantly. They have the live feeds of what's going on. They have all of the information. Whereas information you may get off Facebook or Instagram may be wrong or out of date or whatever else. So educate yourself. That's one of the tools that we have now that they didn't have in the past, is we know what causes this. We know how it spreads, and we know how to slow that down, but only if people pay attention. People learn that information. People take this seriously. So, yeah, that's what I have to say about that. It's doom and gloom. We don't need to panic, but we do need to be careful. We need to look after each other. We need to do what we can, everything that you can. I have the good fortune of, I already worked from home. I already worked remotely. I would already go 2 weeks without seeing another human being in person, except for when I went to the post office or swung through the grocery store. But a lot of people don't have that option, and so the more we can avoid other people, those of us who can, it makes them safer. So do what you can, help each other. This is something that is very important. So, there we go. There it is. Now, let's answer some silly questions and try to lighten the mood a little bit. Daniel Lindsay. What do you think of the choice of a stockade as a sidearm? My first ever Nerf sidearm was a barricade. I had the Stampede that became Ire, and I had a barricade, and then I think I also borrowed a hammer, or a Maverick, the ubiquitous Maverick. But I loved my stand, or my stock, or barricade. It was a barricade. I made a holster for it. I still have the holster. I still have the barricade. I altered the switch so that it turned on when you flipped it forward, which made it easier to turn it on while you drew. And it worked very well. Now, from what I understand, the barricade had better wheels than the stockade. The barricade apparently has some of the best 130 motors of any Nerf blaster that's ever been produced. And it was largely, I understand, because of it was designed to fire Whistler darts, which had were larger, which meant there was more of a gap, and so they had to have a little more power to have any usability at all, given that thing. It unfortunately meant it didn't work so great with elite darts because the crush was a little low. The stockade has then the more modern crush, but the motors aren't as good. So if you modify it, obviously it's going to be every bit as good as anything that's modified. But it's still very good. I mean, it's a semi-automatic 10-round revolver. That's a good sidearm, by all accounts. And the newer ones, the one issue that we ran into back in the day was that when you holster it, the darts would sometimes fall out of the cylinder, and it wasn't too hard to make a plate that just sat in front and kept them from doing that. But we also then, of course, just took the cylinder out and shoved a magazine well in and turned it into a proto Strife. Then the Strife came out. But it's a good choice. It is a good choice, in my opinion. Logan Kunkel. Did you get a silver play button, and do you have any silly plans for it? If I had one, it would be right there. And you'll notice I don't. So I don't know what the turnaround time is on that. I imagine it's a lot. There's millions of YouTube channels. But I haven't gotten mine yet. Hopefully it didn't get mailed to my old place. That would be annoying. But if I got one, I would, of course, do silly things with it. I would probably unload on it with tear and leave it covered in rival dust and then hang it on my wall. Hopefully that's still a thing, and hopefully I get it someday. Should check and make sure my address is updated in the YouTube system. Thought I did. Dragon Blaster 10,000. Aside from the DL44 and the E11 and any variant of lightsaber, that eliminates just about everything, what is your favorite weapon from the Star Wars universe that can be wielded and operated by a single person? You didn't leave me a whole lot to work with there, did you? Probably the Imperial Guard Force Pikes. Halt Striker. How would you go about making an E-Web heavy repeating blaster? Probably a proton pack. I mean, it begs for it because it's got the hose coming off of it already, and it has the power tank thing that would just make a perfect proton pack. The trick would just be the cosmetics. What would I use as a base would kind of be the big question. A Vulcan wouldn't be bad. It wouldn't be too hard to go from a Vulcan, adding the cosmetic bits to make it look like an E-Web. The tripod, again, it'd just be cosmetic stuff. I'm sure there's tutorials on the internet for how to make them, and it'd just be a matter of probably files on Thingiverse for some of it. So, well, that's how I do it. Nerf Reacts. Do you have any merch? And should I get a Strife or an Infamous? Yes, I have merch. I have a whole video on merch. You should go watch my merch video. I think I now have a link down in the description to my merch video. If not, I will add one. Strife or the Infamous? That's a tough one. Depends on whether or not you won't plan to modify it. The Strife is the easiest, or really one of the better blasters for modifying, just because of how much there is for it. How many cages, wheels, 3D parts, kits. There is so much stuff for the Strife. It's such a wonderful platform to begin with, and then people just ran with it. The Infamous is much more difficult to modify unless you really know what you're doing with electronics. But if you're going with stock, that reload capacity, the ability to reload from the port, is really, really cool. Comic Nerd 101. Have you ever read the Star Wars Republic Commando series by Karen Travis? No. Braves Fan 98. Do you know the Milkman? No, I don't believe I've ever met your father. Phil W. What is your favorite primary and secondary? I don't have one. It varies too much. There are just too many options. But it varies from game to game. So like at Nerf Wars, I would use a completely different primary and secondary than I would use at HVZ. And even depending on the HVZ, whether I'm playing a player or an NPC, completely different loadouts. And certain Nerf battles, like I might use one primary and secondary for one kind of round and a different for the next. So too many options. There isn't one that is my favorite. Bipedal Narwhal. Do you like lasagna? My last name is Laurino. There is a city in Italy that's just called Laurino. I'm about as Italian as you can get. Actually, I'm only about a quarter Italian. But yes, I like lasagna. And obviously, homemade is better. I don't think I've ever even had a store-bought lasagna. Ugh. Ugh. Mini bread. How many ballistic balls does Brent have? I have the foggiest idea. What would you do to get them? I would ask him for some. In fact, I did ask him for some, and he gave me a bunch. Take that! Telemachus, 2814. Do you have any plans to do more, not for kid-type stuff, like the After Snickers pizza feed or the M-Berry mukbang? Oh yes, we have all kinds of plans for that, and we were hoping to get that kicked off right about now-ish, and then the plague hit, and half of the crew is now in self-isolation. So when that ends, there will be lots of that kind of stuff, but we're planning to do it on a different channel, so that my channel can remain all kid-friendly, and we can then have a crew channel that's not so much with the kid-friendly. For now, we do most of that stuff over on Luchathor's channel, because he is unabashedly non-kid-friendly. I will murder you. Nightwing Nerf. Probably Nerf, but it got cut off in editing. If you had to pick a favorite 3D printed blaster, which would it be? Probably the Caliburn. That's still probably my favorite. I mean, things like the Desert Pigeon are pretty snazzy. The Spring Thunder is neat, but definitely not my favorite. I would still go with the Caliburn. It's still the one that I like the most. I love how much variety there is for it now. All of the cosmetic shells, and I've seen some beautiful ones. That Decepticon one that I had here, the green one that I had here, anything that Silver Fox has ever come up with. Somebody had an Infinity Gauntlet, a Thanos Caliburn that, oh, it was gorgeous. Had side rail in all of the colors of the stones, and then was the core was purple, and then had gold plating, and oh, it was so cool. Cohen Galagus. How could I make a deplorable? Well, as you're aware, the deplorable is a fly-wheeled Vulcan with a deploy stock and a Maverick grip. The trick is, as you said in the whole question, attaching the parts. Sergeant Deplorable, when he did his, he used aluminum bar to attach it, because that's what I recommended, because that works. Just drilled holes into the bars and then screwed that into the shell to hold it in place. It's much stronger than epoxy will ever be, and is easier to take apart if you need to maintenance it, because it's all still held together with screws or bolts. Same thing with the handle. That's how he attached it as well. It's not epoxied on there. It's screwed on there with aluminum bar. And that's really the easy way to go about it. And then the flywheel cage fits fairly nicely just in the area where the handle is attached. He just had a stock strife cage in there. So it's not actually all that complicated. I have no excuse for why I haven't gotten around to building one. Austin Black. Have you seen the new Star Wars? Yes, of course I have. And if so, what did you think of the Zeiston class Star Destroyer? I thought it was very Palpatine-ish, with his just over the top and not thinking things through that he's always. I mean, the Death Star was similar. He's like, that's just a ridiculous waste of resources. But that was, that was his foible. That's how they beat him, was his plans were always fairly ridiculous. I'd love to know how they got a cannon with that much power into a ship that small. I mean, the Death Star had to be the size of a moon to have a laser cannon capable of blowing up planets. And then that one was the size of a Star Destroyer, which Star Destroyers previously could liquefy the surface of a planet. So, I mean, the fusion reactor they have in those things is basically a small star. But I suppose it did more of crack the planet apart as opposed to just vaporize it. So, but inefficient. I mean, it's a terror weapon that you wouldn't want to use very often because you'd just be destroying resources. There are only so many habitable planets in the world. Blowing them up willy-nilly because somebody thumbed their nose at you is just not a winning strategy. Plus, apparently making the cannon a giant weak spot was... I mean, have it retract and have armored plating or something, because if shooting it once with a laser cannon makes it blow up, that's a design flaw. Cool Zenmal 9. How do you do such good runs on Goodwill? My Goodwill doesn't even have a toy aisle, and it is sad. Well, I go to happy Goodwills that have toy aisles. Big city Goodwills is the secret. Tacoma is a fairly large area, metropolitan area, same with Seattle. I also now go to the Olympia area, which is the state capital. I go to the Portland and Vancouver, which are also large metropolitan areas. At least I would if there wasn't a plague going on. Yeah. And if you live in an area that only has the one sad Goodwill, well, there's nothing you can do about that. I lived in Lewiston, Idaho, which only had the one Goodwill, and it would maybe have a Nerf blaster once a month or so. Yeah. So I kind of went nuts when I first moved out here and suddenly had 10 Goodwills within a 20-mile radius that were all just loaded with Nerf. And, well, I now have a shipping container full of Nerf. Dance Macabre. Just wondered if you've been watching Picard. I haven't. I'm currently re-watching Deep Space Nine, which I'd never actually watched all the way through. I've never actually watched any of the Star Trek series all the way through. I made it most of the way through the original series. I made it, I think, to season 6 of Next Generation. And I would want to watch them all. I never made it, I don't think I made it through a season of Voyager. I feel that I should watch at least Voyager and Next Generation because there are characters from both of those, and a lot of the plot, I understand, is drawn from stuff that happened there. But I'm currently watching Deep Space Nine because I enjoy Deep Space Nine. Leonard Reed. Have you thought about turning a rival roundhouse into a shotgun? No. No, I haven't. It wouldn't be that difficult. I mean, it'd be the same as adding a pump action grip to anything else. And it would actually probably be fairly easy given the design. But I haven't. I've got one. Haven't taken it out of the box yet. Looks nifty. Fairly high capacity for the size. That's kind of why I wasn't really the Kronos one holds more rounds than a roundhouse one would. The Kronos one holds 17. That would only hold 15. And the Kronos one is very svelte, whereas that one is many things, but svelte isn't one of them. It would be difficult to fit that into a holster or something. But it would be neat. I'm sure people will do so, and there'll be kits on Thingiverse, and it'll be fabulous. Crow0920. I read that if Pirate flew a red flag, it meant no quarter given, or that no mercy would be shown and no life would be spared, whereas a black flag meant that those who surrendered without a fight would be allowed to live. Have you heard of this? If not, feel free to ignore this question. If you have, is there any truth behind it? I've read 2 different accounts of it. The one was exactly the way you've worded it. The other one that I read when I was younger, a long time ago, and I can't find the source now, so I could have, read it wrong for all I know. But as I understood it, they would run up the red flag, which meant if you don't surrender, everyone will be killed. And if you didn't surrender, they would then take down the red flag and put up the black flag and then they would kill everybody. Thus the phrase, give them the black flag, meaning no mercy, no quarter. But accounts vary. Generally, who's lived to tell the tale? I believe that the red flag, meaning no quarter, comes from the French royal banner, the king's banner, the orniflamme, which was a big fancy red and gold streamer that if it was raised, it meant that no quarter was going to be given in this fight. But I have no idea if that's where the pirates got the idea, or if there was stuff from before that meant that. Red, being the color of blood, obviously fits very much with that of red flag, kill them all. Yeah. Linus Armand. What would be the absolute best Strife mod for competitive play? Please give detail. I've gotten this question a lot. I think I've gotten it in Q&A, and I definitely get it on Facebook. And you see it on the Nerf Modders Welcome and the auxiliary page and the auxiliary Discord. It shows up a lot. What is the best mod? There is no best mod. There are dozens, or at least a half a dozen motor options. There's at least a half a dozen cage options, which different crush for each of those cages, and there are probably a dozen different wheel options. Altogether, that makes for tens of thousands of possible combinations. You also then add in things like semi-auto, select fire, full auto, and okay, now you've got even more options. And the reason that there is no one right answer is because it comes down to how you play. The best blaster for you, the way that you prefer to play, might not be the best blaster for the way I want to play. I may favor having a really, really high crush setup that puts out an incredible amount of FPS, but ends up being inaccurate at long ranges because I'm generally going to be close quarters and I want it to be super fast so you can't dodge. Somebody else might be willing to go with a slightly lower FPS if it means that it's more accurate at longer ranges, which tends to be the case. If you put too much power behind a Nerf dart, they tend to go whirlybird. It also depends on what ammo you're going to be running. If you really want to run this particular ammo type, you might not be able to go with certain builds. 2S versus 3S doubles the number of possibilities. Yeah, there is no one right answer. If you could ask a dozen different Nerf modders, what's the best Strife build? And you will get a dozen different responses. Some people like the heavier wheels. Some people like the lighter wheels. Somebody wants straight cages. Some people want canted cages. Some people want a dart guide. Some people don't. Some people want serrated wheels. Some people want smooth wheels. Some people want high crush. Some people want low crush. Some people want high torque. Some people want high FPS or RPM. There is no one right answer. And so, yeah, you're just going to have to experiment and figure out which one you like. Or do some research and figure out what combinations are creating what variations. So, there is no easy answer. And finally, Maker24. What are good mods for Recon Mark II? Well, there are kits for it. At the very least, there's spring mods for it. There's some cosmetic stuff for it. It was one of the later ones in line. It'll take most of the stuff the Retaliator will, but not apparently everything? Question mark? They're similar but not identical, annoyingly. But obviously the spring, the catch, taking out locks if you don't like locks, all that kind of thing. Pump grip. It'll take any of the Recon pump grips. Retaliator pump grips, anyway. I also picked up a Rapid Strike and I'm having some problems with it. Luckily, the battery tray wasn't corroded, but the pusher is having an issue. So it revs up fine, but when I pull the trigger, the pusher only goes halfway and then stops. The only way to get it back is to take the mag out and to put it back in. Huh. Well, it sounds... My first thought is that it sounds like your pusher control switch is wired backwards. The pusher control switch is the switch that's supposed to ensure that once you pull the trigger and the pusher arm starts going out, that it continues to move, even if you let go of the trigger. It continues to move until it gets all the way back. And it does so because when that switch is released, it completes the circuit for as long as the pusher arm is moving, and then once the pusher arm returns, the button gets pressed, and it the motor braking kicks in and halts it. It sounds like it's backwards, and when you pull the trigger, the switch is coming out, and then the control arm switch is kicking in and halting it, is my guess. But there's definitely something wrong with the wiring. Something in there is causing the motor to halt and to not complete. And it's probably some sort of a short. It's probably not ruining anything at this point because I assume you're running it on just alkalines, which are stable enough that they're not going to care. But that's what it sounds like. You're definitely going to need to open it up and take a look at the wiring. Compare it to the wiring diagram that I have on my rewiring video and make sure that everything is correct. Yeah, you're definitely going to have to open it up and figure out what's going on. It's definitely a wiring problem. All right. And now for the loot. Right. And now for the loot. For the boodle. For the swag. We'll start with this letter from... I don't know what that says. Dear Captain, this is Brady. I am the one that emailed you the other day about sending a couple of patches. Scout patches. That you could wear as morale patches. I hope you like these. Yours truly, Brady. Oh, well, that's just... What do we got? Power of brotherhood through visions of many. Well, that's just cool looking. Look at that. Look at that. I was, in fact, a scout, a Boy Scout in my youth. But this one, that is just entirely too cool. Look at that's all biohazard. Yo, that is so going on Tier's backpack. That's where that, or maybe the flamethrower. I don't know where this is going, but this is definitely going on my gear because that is cool. Oh, I love it. I love the green because I use green ammo when I do HVZ because zombie strike. Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. So cool. So cool. Thank you. Alright. Let's get this one out of the way. This is not really fan mail, but it was... has a neat story behind it. This is another thing I've been sent by Tactical XMen to review, and it's their newest armor. And it is pretty snazzy looking. Has the best breastplate, which has Molly on the backpack. And is in fact apparently a plate carrier and has a thick foam plate in it, so that's neat. But Molly on the backpack for like either a backpack or shotgun sheath or better yet a camelback of some kind. It does have groin armor, which is the one thing that my heavy armor was missing, so I'm actually really liking that. It then has arm guards and upper arm guards, as well as a battle belt. A really nice looking one too. Oh, that's a really nice looking. So yeah, I will be doing a review on that. I may then do a comparison with the other two that I have, because I've been sent 3 different sets of armor. This one is the most that's actually, I mean, it's probably at least, I don't know, an 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe more, maybe 3/16. So it's actually protective. So that's really, really cool. Looking forward to that. The person at Tactical X-Men who was my contact or my handler, I don't know what you want to call him, his customer service bordered on stalking. It was, I mean, like he actually watched my channel, and if I mentioned looking for something, he'd ping me and go, hey, we've got one of those now, would you like it? But he moved on from there or got promoted or whatever. He was no longer my handler. He sent me an email saying, hey, I'm not the person anymore, here's the new guy. But I was in the process of moving at that time, and so I didn't reach out to the guy. And then when I finally dug through 6 months of emails when things settled down here, I found that guy's email again, contacted him and said, hey, I hear you're my new contact. Is it still the case? And he contacted me. My plan had been, to ask for this armor because I'd seen it and I wanted it. And so I was going to ask him for it, but I didn't get around to it because he offered it before I could. His response email was, yes, I'm your new handler. Do you want this armor? He knows what I'm about. Yep, send it. Took him a while, which isn't surprising, but that's going to be a fun video. I'm going to have fun with that. Okay, let's take a look at this one. It's stuff. There we nope. That's nope. That's a receipt. I don't know. Aha! Greetings and salutations as promised are 2 Nerf Blasters you may have planned to purchase, but compliments of my alias Lucas Damascus DeWolf, I bid to you a very late birthday present, Bangarang, from Cody. Well, we have, speaking of the roundhouse, a roundhouse. Which, like I said, I had one. Well, now I've got 2, so I might have to shotgun one of them. I might not, though, because I'd love to dual wield these because they're beefy and I love them. The other one is an Ultra 2. I acquired one of these myself, too. Now I have 2 of those, so I could dual wield these. Definitely want to do some of the big mods that have been doing the, want to get the elite cylinder and the elite flywheel cage and do some other rewires. Yeah, it's neat. I like them. It's a shame. Shame it had to be Ultra, but still cool. And we will make it elite. Alright, one last large package. Zoom out a little bit. And actually get the whole package. Hopefully nothing fell out. The tape did not want to hold on the bottom. This comes to me from a Matthew. And it's a thing. It's some stuff. Okay. Note. Oh, good. Read first, please. Well, that is some neat paper. To Captain, enclosed is your hammer shot, rough cut, and Chronos. Love, Matt McCarn, a.k.a. Lunica Drow? Lily Lunica Drow. Well, that all look... Is that a tie? Nope. It's a kerchief. I don't know what it is, but I like it. I shall wear it when I wear my fancy clothes. Oh, look at that steampunk looking metal. Oh, Orange Modworks gear kit. Oh, I like that. It's brassy, steampunky goodness. It's in my colors, black and copper. Yeah. That is sweet. That is sweet. Oh, that grip is so comfy. That is sweet. Get back in that. Ooh. That's a bit awkward. Wait, no, still awkward for a lefty. Oh, I like the sights. Yeah, I really like those sights. I don't know what this is all about, but that is also super cool. I like the purple and the jangly bit. And finally, we've got... Oh, I have some of these old Alice large holsters. Oh no! The hose has come loose. I shall have to repair it. I'm sure I can. I think. It's even loaded. How considerate. Well, that, sir... Oh, okay, that's where that's supposed to go. Yeah, it'll be easy enough to fix. Easy enough. That is also really cool. I like the copper wrap on that and the brass. Very cool. I like the hose making a handguard. I like handguards. That is all super cool. We have one errant gear that apparently fell off of something. That'll happen. Thing got kicked around, like I said. Oh, jeez. No, leave off. It's blue. I like it. Ooh, a lockpick training lock. You can see the tumblers in there, so you can practice picking locks. I don't know if there was originally a lockpick kit in here. Okay, now this. Oh, that is so cool. I think that paper may have come out of here. What a tragedy. It definitely did. Oh, that is... If this is your own work, sir, that is gorgeous. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, that's my favorite thing out of here, honestly. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I will have to come up with some use for this. I have a smaller one that I had my brother write some of my old poetry in. I love how heavy that paper is. That is gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful stuff, sir. Awesome, awesome work. Aha! I found where that gear went. Lovely. Super cool! I'm gonna need to make a loadout around these. Some sort of a costume. Thoughts. Ooh, a steampunk Borg. Yeah. Now I have plans. Alright. Well, as always, you people absolutely spoil me. For those of you terribly concerned that I'm going to get the horrible virus from the mail, the good news is the virus cannot live outside the human body for more than a couple of hours, and so the contents of the packages would be perfectly fine. The only risk would be if the mail carrier had sneezed on the packages before I got my hands on them. But wash your hands, be careful, be safe, and thank you guys for watching.